A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Survival of No Limits. For the 7th time now, I got this location, and well, here we go. This exact location, though, is pretty much going to be abandoned in favor of a new spot, which I will pretty much have starting 2 days from now. But for the time period that I have left, let's go on ahead and talk about one final subject. By looking at the list right here, I've got the subject in line right here, and it looks like that freak waves are what's up next. Episode 62. So, episode 62 is underway. Freak waves are, of course, something that you might be very familiar with in case you've ever watched a lot of movies out there relating to sailing out in the ocean. Whether it be Castaway, Pirates of the Caribbean, or probably even the more older fashioned sort of things out there relating to the golden age of sail, whenever possible, it still is good to know that there's always that one scene where a ship might be sailing through a storm and it would be essential to do certain things, otherwise the ship itself might capsize and its occupants might end up drowning, lost at sea, forever and ever. But that is only because it gives us a good insight as to what real-life anomaly out there in the world's oceans could potentially be. And that, of course, has been labeled as freak waves, storm waves, surge waves, and many other typical names out there. I'm more or less familiar with the term freak wave because, after all, it is in fact a freakishly large wave that can usually be at least 100 feet in height, more or less depending on how severe the storms out in the world's oceans could potentially be, or otherwise. And there are in fact lots of other reasons as to how gigantic waves like those can pretty much be made. But no matter what the size of it is, no matter what the girth of them is, and no matter what the circumference of them might be, it still is good to know that someday, if you're ever out there in the middle of the ocean, whether it be Point Nemo, Point North Atlantic, Point Indian Ocean, then at some point in time you might encounter a gigantic wave like that. These kind of waves are also typically responsible for eventually leading to what are known as tsunamis. You know what? I guess we'll talk about that a couple days from now, once I find the new location to settle in. Freak waves, of course, are much more deadly in most ways, because first of all, they're out in the ocean. So you could only imagine if a freak wave were to start out in the middle of the ocean at a height of around 100 feet and then reach Virginia Beach, for example, you could only expect it to be way higher than that. If it were 100 feet out in the ocean, chances are it'd be a few times that amount when it reaches the shores of the Virginia Beach shoreline itself. So that alone is absolutely terrifying. But for the most part, we can actually expect a lot of other things to take place, not just with the freak waves being out in the oceans, but also with many other things relating to the world's oceans that eventually lead to certain disasters that we're very familiar with and will probably never forget. I, of course, will never forget the fact that, well, I once rode an antique Chinook sail, which had been used during the 17th and 18th centuries. We went out to Lake Michigan, and man, that was one bumpy ride. There were plenty of storms out there in Lake Michigan at the time, and there weren't really freak waves, but man, were the waves freaking rip. It was almost like riptide, in a way. Pretty severe riptides. So, for the most part, those are freaking scary. But if you really want to talk extreme disasters relating to the world's oceans, let's go and talk about tsunamis. Stay tuned. 2 days from now. Survival of No Limits, with a new location and a new set of subjects to talk about throughout the next 14 days onwards. So, that's it for today. But if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.